everybody. It's an exciting day here at Brink Events. We're very excited to be doing our first ever focal points. I'm Aiden from Brink Events, and today we're going to be joined by Ryan Zynger from Zynger Events down in Hollywood, California. This is the first edition of our focal points interview series, and what we're going to do is we're going to be interviewing some of the top event planners and designers from around the world and really get inside their mind and see what makes them tick and see what inspires them. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll be doing one every month or two. So stay tuned for more upcoming interviews to come. But for today, we've got Ryan live with us from Hollywood, California, down in California. How are you doing today, Ryan?
I'm good, thanks, Aiden. How are you?
Good. How's the weather down there? Is it nice and warm, or?
Hot as usual, and I'm sitting here in our little office, and I have the air conditioner off so you can hear me. So make this quick because I don't want to start sweating.
Oh, come on. Well, okay, we'll make it as quick and painless as possible, but we definitely want to hear more about your company and what you've been doing. So maybe give us a little bit of background on how you got started, maybe if you went to university or college, or how you really got into the events world.
Sure. Yeah, sure, of course. First of all, thank you for asking me to participate in this, and I'm glad that I get to be one of your first, so that's exciting, or the first actually, which is great. So Zynger Events, we've been in business. We just celebrated 11 years. So I started the company 11 years ago here in LA. But my event history, I guess, is I used to live in Canada, as you know, in Victoria, actually. So after I finished college, I went to college in Victoria, but I studied like tourism, hospitality management. And I was working for the military in Victoria at, I can't remember what it was called. It was near Esquimalt. I don't remember. Anyway, was working for the military, and I did a family resource fair for them, which was my first kind of little taste of doing events. And then shortly after that, I ended up moving to Vancouver, and I decided I wanted to do something sort of in the marketing, I guess, industry. So kind of sought out marketing positions. And actually, one of the positions I ended up getting was with an event management company in Vancouver called Effective Events, or I think it was EE Event Promotions or something at the time. And I'd never really kind of even heard of event companies or knew that was like a thing. So started working for them as their office manager, and just kind of ended up falling in love with it. And I think for me, it's always been, I enjoy doing this right now, so we'll see what happens in the future. And that turned into, 20 some years later, 25 years later, I guess. So it's been a long time, and it's been a lot of, it's working well for now, let's see what happened kind of moment. So, and here I am, having my own company and having staff, and, working with, fun clients and not fun clients down here in Hollywood, California. So yeah, so that's brief wrap up of my 25-year.
Time flies, yeah, for sure. So what actually brought you down to California from Canada? What made you move down?
Yeah, sure. So I actually was living in Vancouver, working for a client in Vancouver. I actually left the event position that I was with and went to work directly for a client where I was working in their development department, planning events. And that position wasn't really working out. So I put in my notice for the job, and a really good friend of mine and I decided we would come down to Los Angeles. She was fired from her job, and I quit mine probably within the same week. And we were walking around downtown Vancouver and got inspired. We actually ran into Bette Midler, believe it or not, on the corner. I don't remember where we were, but we were both like, oh my God, maybe this is a sign we should go to Hollywood. So her and I came down here for a vacation right before Christmas and stayed for about 10 days. And while we were down here, we kind of just did a ton of networking and met as many people as we could. And I had reached out to a couple of people through the International Special Event Society it was at the time, and met with some people here. And my friend had received a job offer while we were here. And I had found out about a position that I ended up taking, or ended up getting hired on at the California Science Center. And we both kind of just figured out how to get sponsorship through the North America Free Trade Agreement, and we were off and running and living in Los Angeles by I think February the 2nd. So
wow,
turn around and I worked at the California Science Center in LA before starting my own business, and I was there for about 8 years. So
yeah. Wow. That's great. So what is it about the events industry that you just really love? Like what makes you just, get excited to put on your next event or what's that drive? Where does that passion and that fuel come from?
Mhm. I think for me, I think this is common for a lot of event planners, but I think it's going into a space and seeing it as nothing or seeing it as a big open space you can go in and kind of paint it and make it something. I think that as kind of I guess I would say as a kind of a controlling person too, I think that it's fun to be sort of directing something that can be so impactful for so many people. So it's, a collaboration of, making different personalities work and vendors kind of work together and have everybody play nice in the sandbox and then see it come to fruition. And I'll be honest, it's nice when it's done too. You know what I mean? Like as
Yeah,
much as planning events, I also do like when they're finished,
when you're done.
back on it and having it be a success is, and having clients be happy with you and guests be happy with you, I think is, kind of
Yeah.
makes it worth it. So,
Yeah, it's definitely a tough part is making sure all the stakeholders of an event are happy, whether it's the guests, the client, the sponsors, maybe there's donors, maybe there's all different parties that are pulling in different directions, I find. And like you say, it's always difficult to make everybody happy. Client might not want to spend as much, but the guests are going to expect a certain experience, and you got to just try and make sure those expectations are all on the same page. And I definitely agree. It's difficult, but it's a beautiful thing when it does come together. So one of the things about our industry is it's exciting, it's glamorous, it can be champagne and high profile events and everything. But as we both know full well, it's not all fun and games. So what are some things about the industry you dislike, or that you're just like, okay, I love it generally, but here's some things that I just are tough for me to swallow.
yeah, I agree with that statement. I actually just had a conversation earlier today with someone about like how people assume that as event planners we're picking flowers and music and like doing all this really fun glamorous stuff, and we're not. You know what I mean? Like, I think that I'll be the first to admit that at an event, I'm usually the first person there, and I'm usually the last person to leave, and my job throughout the day could entail anything from you know cleaning up someone's puke because they had too much to drink to picking up garbage at the end of the night. So I think that my least favorite things are um, working with vendors or working with people maybe that don't follow through on things that they agree to. I think is a really challenging part of our industry, or when things happen that are unexpected or sort of unfixable, I think is when it becomes super challenging. Like for example, a generator losing power at an event, or someone unplugging something that should not have been unplugged. So it's like the unforeseen things are usually the things that are the hardest to kind of, I guess, stomach, kind of the hardest things to swallow, because as a planner, I think that we try to do as much in advance as possible to make sure that things go well.
Yeah.
And when don't go well because of unforeseen circumstances or things that are not within our control, I think are the things that can tend to be the most frustrating for
Yeah.
me. So,
Yeah, well, and as we know full well, event planning is definitely a stressful industry. It's always typically ranked top 5 in terms of most stressful professions, and I tend to agree with that. I mean, there are some great times, but it can be stressful too. And one thing we always say here is, it has to be a manageable level of stress. There's always going to be a level of stress and expectation, but it has to be manageable. And so I think that if you're the person that can't handle any stress, event planning is probably not the right industry for you. So would you tend to agree with that?
yeah, I agree with that, and it's funny too because that statement kind of it reminds me of something of a supervisor that I had once, and I'm sure that you've heard of this too, and other people have, of course, used it as well. How, as event planner, how we want to be perceived as an event is almost like a duck, and we're floating on the water and everything's great and we're happy and great, but then under the water, where your little feet are going crazy, and that's kind of how we want to portray ourselves at events.
Mm-hmm.
That we're kind of in control and we have everything. I've certainly worked with people that don't demonstrate control and that don't demonstrate being able to maintain kind of their composure and stuff, and I think that as an event person, you kind of have to absolutely have that, because again, super stressful. It is a super stressful industry. I think that, things that we learn by experience and things that we learn by being in the event industry is like how to manage that stress and what are things that we need to be stressed out about and what are things that we need to be stressed out.
Yeah, things that are out of our control or things that you shouldn't be stressed about because they're just that out of our control. And you just try and mitigate your risk and plan as best you can and take it as it comes, I guess. So
and there's going to be something that goes wrong at every event, and as much as I would like to say, like, you know what, our events are always perfect and everything's always great, and that's not true. Like, there's always something that goes wrong, and it's whether how you deal with it and if you can fix it, I think, is what the issue is. And that old saying is you can't make everybody happy all the time is so true, right? Like, we just do the best that we can, and hope that the best that we can is the thing that people remember, and not the things that they don't remember, like maybe the food might have been too cold or whatever. Like that, there's always kind of something that is not always perfect, and I think it's just like how the things that we want to focus on are that people are going to remember. And
yeah, I mean, as long as the guest experience is there and they don't really hopefully see the little issues that happen and it's more of an internal operations thing, then I think it's probably okay. They'll always happen. So I know your niche is really around, nonprofit events, charity events, a lot of fundraisers and galas and awareness events, and a lot around LGBTQ and that area as well. So maybe tell us a little bit more about, these types of events and what you guys do for these groups.
Sure. I would say that kind of my history is in working with nonprofits since probably my first job, so that it just kind of is a niche for me, and it's something that I kind of take. Something that I care about really personally is about making the world a better place, and I think that we all have a responsibility to do so. For me, I'm happy that I get to work in an industry and I get to do a job where I feel like I'm contributing something. We do work with a lot of nonprofits. We do a lot of fundraising events, but we also do like educational events or events that have some kind of a goal or purpose in mind. So we're not just throwing a party for the sake of throwing a party, or not that there's anything wrong with throwing weddings, but we don't do weddings. So a lot of the things that we work on have causes, and I take great pride in that. And I honestly don't mind being busy and doing things when I know it's doing something better in the long run for everybody. And I think that if I had to redo my company's tagline or redo my company name or whatever, I would like to think that we're making the event or making the world a better place one event at a time. So
well, that's touching. That's great. And I know you've been doing a lot of great stuff for a lot of great groups for many years, and I've been lucky to be friends with you, and I would call you a mentor as well, so I appreciate that. And I absolutely know you guys
too. I get to look at you and watch you and see you grow and change and watch the things that you're doing, and it's inspiring as well. So it's definitely a two-way street. So
that's awesome. I really appreciate that. So just a few more questions. So, what would you say are a couple signature things that you like to do for events? Certain people, for us, for example, we do a lot of reception style events as opposed to sit downs. Some people love, they're big on lighting, whether it's up lighting or ambient lighting. Some people are big on florals. Some people are big on draping. If there's any sort of little pieces that you're really big on that you love integrating or putting your piece on for an event, what would you say from a design perspective are a few of those bits?
Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily say that we have a kind of a heavy foot in the design portion of it, because a lot of the clients that we work with don't really have budgets for that sort of thing. So I would say, we have done projects, of course, where there is design involved, and that's when we do get to pick the flowers, or we do get to pick the colors or the special lighting or whatever. But I think that I rely on our vendors to, sort of keep us in the loop on the latest trends and what's hot. And, I kind of push heavily and rely heavily on the people that we use on a regular basis to kind of keep us up to date with stuff. I would say that as a company, kind of, The things that we work really well on, the things that we sort of pride ourselves on, are that we are super organized and we, try to get everything done in advance and make sure that we're communicating properly as event planners and that we're communicating with vendors, in advance and doing one sheets. And I think that we're really good at this sort of pre-organization of stuff, creating timelines and coming up with, all this sort of necessary things that are necessary to make sure that an event goes well. I would say that that's kind of our strong suit, and it's not necessarily that a mark by doing fabulous draping or by doing really beautiful florals or whatnot. I think that our strong suit is kind of all of the pre-planning and the things that get hands. And again, trying to get everyone to play nice in the sandbox. I don't want to be the kind of person or the kind of event planner. And I've worked at events where, a caterer is like the most awful negative person that you're ever around that yells at staff and stuff. And I don't ever want to be perceived as being that kind of a person. So my goal and my objective, and I think the thing that our clients appreciate, is that at events on site, we're as nice as possible and we're as ducky as possible, where we're calm and things could be going on in the background, but we're maintaining sort of a sense of having control of everything. And even if we don't have control of everything, we're not sort of freaking out and like making anyone else panic. Because I think by, being calm and collective, and, by being a good person, I think that that's what people appreciate and remember about working.
Yeah, one thing I noticed about you guys is how well you work with your staff and volunteers. Just from my experience, seeing what you guys do. I mean, very organized, always thinking about taking care of staff and volunteers, which obviously is a very big part of nonprofit and charity events. And I think it's something that gets overlooked very often, just as, volunteers are free labor and, you just expect them to come and do. No, you got to treat them right. You got to feed them, you got to give them breaks and stuff. And I think that that's definitely one thing I saw that you guys did really well, which is extremely important for, in the world of nonprofit and charity events, for sure.
Absolutely. And I mean, like I said, I've kind of always been involved with nonprofits and kind of doing events that make the world a better place. And, before I was able to contribute financially, and I'm still not really able to contribute too much financially, but before I was able to contribute financially, I used to spend a lot of my own time volunteering for different nonprofit organizations and different organizations that I cared about. So, and as being a volunteer at events, I kind of know what I liked and what I didn't like about events. So I try to put, consideration into that when we're planning stuff, so that we know that volunteers are appreciated, because sometimes that's all people are able to give is their time, and they're not able to give money. So I want people to feel valued and appreciated for that. And I think that organizations as well really take volunteer hours into consideration, and to, having volunteers be part of their organization, which helps the organization grow and change. And I think that that's really important that they're recognized. Same thing with staff too, right? Like I was mentioning earlier, I mean, I've been working at events where I came in as like a day person to help, or, helped other people. And then again, there's that caterer that was an awful person, right? And I remember what it was like working with those people, and I certainly don't want to be known as that. So I think it's important to, recognize and treat everyone kind of as they should be.
So for you, after an event, you're looking back, what determines a successful event for you personally, as a company, professionally? What's a successful event? How do you measure that?
Yeah, well, again, I think that there's sort of, as I mentioned earlier, there's always going to be sort of issues that come up and problems that come up, but I sort of negate those based on what, how big of a fluff up was it, and what was the fluff up from, or whatnot. I think that again, we always look back on things that we can do better, and I think that that's a super important thing to remember. We also always, do a debrief at the end of every event and think of things that, what didn't go well, what did go well, what can we do better, and then also what did we learn? Because I think it's important to, take a look at things that worked, and take a look at things that could use improvement upon, and also to remember that there are lessons sort of out of everything that you can take forward. So there's always going to be something that happens that you don't know about that you can try and like prepare for better next time. So to me, measuring success is that, the guests came, they had a good time, they feel valued for their contribution to whatever it was. And if no one's suing anybody, I think that's successful.
I would
never happened. Knock on wood.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. So, what's coming up at Zynger Events? What's exciting? What is a portfolio event, or one event in particular you're very excited about?
Yeah. Well, we have a couple of really super busy weeks coming up. We have a consulting client that's doing a global leadership meeting next week. So we have kind of a week-long convention happening, but we have evening events kind of throughout the week, which is pretty cool. So we're excited about that one because they have a bit of a budget, which is always nice. And then the following week, we're actually working with a restaurant here in Hollywood Boulevard called the Musso and Frank Grill that is celebrating their 100-year anniversary, which is pretty awesome to be involved with something like that. The restaurant itself was featured in the film that just came out, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay, yeah.
And they are actually being recognized by the Hollywood Chamber, and they're getting a star on the Walk of Fame, which is cool because I'm a star reveal, so I'm super excited to be kind of part of that. And it's, it's fun to be this, small town Canadian boy to know that now I'm working on, giving people stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It's pretty cool. So it's fun to be involved in something like that. And, working with celebrities, as I'm sure that you're aware, is kind of a common thing here in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
To be involved in something turning 100 years and to be involved in kind of all the things that they're doing is really exciting. So that's an exciting one, but
yeah.
I don't want to say one client's more exciting than another,
yeah.
because all of the things we do kind of have a cause and something to them. So I'm happy to be involved usually with all of our clients. I say all of them, but of course we've had some that haven't always been the most beneficial relationships, but I'm happy to be involved. And
we won't name those ones though.
Yeah, true.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing some photos and videos from that 100-year anniversary and whatnot. So last question, 5-10 years from now, I know it's a long ways away. Where do you see Zynger Events? Where do you see yourself?
That's a great question. I kind of, again, just, we kind of do it seems to be working now, and hopefully that continues for the next 5 or 10 years. I would think that as a company, I don't think that we want to grow too much. I think that it would be nice to have, a couple more staff and bring on, a couple more clients and whatnot to continue doing the work that we do, and maybe, expand a little bit more into the corporate field. Again, expanding into the corporate field, but still doing events that kind of have a cause associated with them, I think is really important to the company.
Mm-hmm.
As far as myself, I'm a super busy person and I like being busy. I'm single. So yeah, so if anyone's looking, let me know. I'm just kidding.
Can you put your Facebook profile in the links or?
So I think that, just continuing on doing what I'm doing, and hopefully I'm still enjoying it in 10 more years. If I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, hopefully I'm not putting myself through torture. But, so far I really like what I'm doing. And again, I like to be busy and I like feeling like I'm contributing towards something. So hopefully I'll be in the same situation I am 10 years from now. And
yeah, I think that's the biggest piece. I mean, when it starts to not be as fun or you're not enjoying it, I think it's time to make a change. And you know what? Things don't last forever. I think people change industries, change companies. They need to mix it up sometimes. So, like you say, if it's no fun anymore, then maybe it's time to be out. But it seems like you're having a lot of fun down there in Hollywood. So let's hope that we just continue to see you grow. So thank you again. Thank you for, helping us and being the first to be interviewed on our new Focal Points series here. We're excited to be able to do this here at Brink Events, and we're going to be interviewing a lot more top event designers and planners with Ryan Zynger here from Zynger Events in Hollywood being our first. We'll be sure to put your social media links in the description below, so people can check you out on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, your website and everything. Look forward to seeing photos and videos from those upcoming events. And any closing words from you?
No, I just, again, thank you for asking us to, take part in your new series, and for allowing us to be first. And I enjoy our monthly catch-up calls that we have to kind of discuss what's going on, and I'll look forward to that. And to everyone watching, thank you for tuning in, and make sure to keep an eye on Aiden, because he's
and Ryan, he's a great guy. Okay, thanks everybody. Until next time, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.